we unpack it with Mahlengi Bhengu Motsiri. She joins us virtually. She's ANC spokesperson. Good afternoon, Ms. Bhengu Motsiri. Thank you very much for joining us on the program. So today you outlined the resolution by the NEC on the future of the PECs of both Gauteng and KZN. Just talk us through what the NEC resolved.
Well, the long and short of a very extensive, a very reflective discussion is an agreement that to address some of the political, organizational, and leadership challenges that have been identified in the two provinces, something has got to be done. And the option that I spoke to retaining the status quo being identified as a non-option, and therefore leaving the National Executive Committee with two options, looking at how to reinforce the existing structures in the province, supporting them with organization building work, renewal work, and all of that, or whether to dissolve the two provincial executive committees and replace that with an interim task team, and of course also continue with the work of supporting those provinces and their leaderships with rebuilding efforts and restoring the ANC to where it should be in the past two provinces. Then the National Executive Committee, considering all of these options and looking at the state of organization in KwaZulu-Natal and Gauteng, then resolving to go for what we refer to as the reconfiguration of the leadership in the two provinces, but not just the reconfiguration of the leadership in the two provinces, restoring and coming up with a plan of action to work strongly in rebuilding our structures right from the ground, from branches to regions, all the way to the province, making sure that we ready ourselves for the upcoming local government elections in 2026.
Beyond the political impact that this would have, many are asking, would this have an impact on governance per se? That would some of these decisions now affect some of those who are currently in government, or it will only be confined to the political party, that if there's going to be a reconfiguration, it's confined to party level?
Certainly the latter, confined to the organization. The idea is to ensure that the ANC as an organization is strong enough so that it even governs better in Gauteng and in where we have responsibilities in the government in KwaZulu-Natal, we do so with excellence.
There is a very strict... Pardon me for interjecting there, just for clarity, pardon me for interjecting there. So simply put, one wouldn't see a situation where perhaps for now the Premier of Gauteng would probably be moved?
Not at all. In fact, there's a very express condition put there by the National Executive Committee that these changes should not interfere with the work of government.
And then beyond this now, when you look at these two provinces, when listening to the SG, he took his time to make the distinction even between perhaps Mpumalanga, which also lost quite a lot of voters, but nevertheless managed to still form government on its own, if you will. That in this instance, there are those that might have held the view that these two provinces are being targeted. Just talk us through the rationale behind this and the importance of making the distinction between other provinces that also lost support versus these specific provinces that are now going to be reconfigured.
Yes, it is important to really state upfront that there is no targeting of the two provinces. In fact, the decision to prioritize the two provinces is a decision of the same National Executive Committee, which, when presented with the post-elections assessment that was undertaken last year, the decision was that we must fix the state of organization across the country, but let's prioritize the two provinces for known reasons. The two most populous provinces, provinces that also contribute significantly to the country's GDP, and provinces that also contribute significantly to the national vote share and the national vote register. So for all those reasons and more, it is important that we are stable in the two provinces. We will proceed to other provinces as well. I can't speak about, we can talk about Mpumalanga as just as an example. All the provinces of the ANC have got to receive attention.
Now, there are reports that in those meetings where you had those deliberations, in fact, the factional line started to be quite apparent, that there were those who were now perhaps either for or against a dissolution or reinforcement purely motivated by 2027. Is this in fact a fact? Pardon me.
Yes, well, there would be, suggestions to that effect, but there is nothing, untoward in the ANC about having robust and frank discussions. Such was this past NEC. There's absolutely nothing unusual about that in the culture and traditions of the ANC. It has been stressed. In fact, the last National Executive Committee meeting in 2024 adopted what it called a leadership perspective. One of the things that it provides for is a suspension of any campaigning for 2027 so that we focus on the task at hand. What is that task at hand? Is to build the organization, is to unite the organization, is to fight elections that are going to be coming up. And so we are asking all our structures and our members to suspend any talk about 2027. There will be a moment in time where that is managed formally.
Mm-hmm. There are now calls from some GNU partners for the minister and the presidency, Khumbudzo Ntshavheni, to be held accountable for some of those reports that we're seeing now. What is the position of the ANC on just those calls by GNU partners?
Well, the ANC will articulate its position on the matter of Comrade Khumbudzo once law enforcement kicks in. It's not something that is rumored in the media. It's not something that is, being tried in public. There has got to be tangible evidence of law enforcement kicking in. So, in other words, she has got to be charged, and if so arrested or so bailed or whatever the case may be, the ANC will kick in terms of its constitution when that happens. At this point, we really cannot act on the basis of reportage on the paper without the knowledge of how far the processes of law enforcement have begun. We need to try and steer clear of acting on a hunch and acting on the basis of what is being put out there. There's a lot content that gets put out in the public domain. Some of it is authentic, some of which is not so authentic. Even if it is authentic, the processes of the law must always be the ones that dictate how the ANC responds to matters of this nature. We are on record as having done so. We had a case of Comrade Zizi Godwa. It went through its course. It went on step aside, and the process ran in the way that it did. And that's the same thing that we will do should any of our members be found to be in conflict with the law.
All right. Ms. Bhengu Motsiri, thank you very much for joining us on the program. That's ANC spokesperson Mahlengi Bhengu Motsiri. And